After Week 17, the playoffs are officially set in the NFL. This season, they added one more wild card per conference. So only the teams that were the top in the conference get a bye. This adds a new dynamic because the 2 seeds will be more vulnerable than past years. That being said, I think the 2 seeds will still be pretty good going into the wild card. Let's go into the matchups. I'm going to start in the AFC with the 2 and 7 seeds, the Indianapolis Colts at the Buffalo Bills. The Colts had a terrific defense and an offense that improved as the season went on. As Philip Rivers got more accustomed to the game plan, the Colts started to win more games down the stretch. And with the emergence of Jonathan Taylor at running back, helped Indianapolis make the playoffs with an 11-5 record. As for the Buffalo Bills, they ended the season on an amazing run in a year where Josh Allen looked like a potential MVP, and another team with a great defense. Buffalo is looking like a great contender in the AFC this year. The AFC is really strong this year as the 2 and 7 seeds are only separated by 2 games. I think the Colts are better than people are giving them credit for. I think the Colts can make this a close game, but in the end, I think Josh Allen will be just too much for the Colts to stop. I think that Buffalo will win this wild card game 24-20. The next game is the Pittsburgh Steelers hosting the Cleveland Browns. The Cleveland Browns deserve a lot of credit this year for making the playoffs for the first time in 18 years. Especially after they were able to do this after losing their top wide receiver, Odell Beckham Jr., due to a torn ACL earlier in the season. The Browns were able to win games because of their running back tandem of Nick Chubb and Kareem Hunt. The Browns relied on a good running game and not having to heavily rely on Baker Mayfield to make plays to sneak into the playoffs on their last game. That being said, every wildcard team in the AFC had to win in the last game or have some scenario to make the playoffs this year. As for the Steelers, they started the season 11-0, the best start by any team in the NFL this year, and won 1-3 in their final 4 games of the season, only being the Indianapolis Colts. This start for the Colts really surprised me, mostly because in every game I watched from them early on in the season, I didn't understand how they were winning games. They have one of the best defenses in the NFL, but their offense struggled against teams they should have beat easily. Like when they played the Dallas Cowboys, when the Cowboys were using their 4th-string quarterback. The Steelers only won that game by 1 possession. A team that was struggling to find a quarterback after multiple injuries to their starter Dak Prescott, their backup Andy Dalton, and I'm not sure who their 3rd string was, but he was also unable to play for the Cowboys against the Steelers. And Pittsburgh was just barely able to get by with a win. Pittsburgh also had a 1-possession game against the Jaguars, who had the worst record in the NFL. So their 11-0 start did not impress me. It more so surprised me that a top team like the Ravens were not able to beat them. Then the end of the season for Pittsburgh happened. The final couple games for Pittsburgh, the Steelers looked like a broken team. The great defense they had trouble making stops. Their offense became very one-dimensional with little, if any, run game. This led to multiple losses at the end of the year. As for this game of the Steelers against the Browns, it is a rematch of the Week 17 matchup where the Browns were able to win as the Steelers started their backup quarterback. Now, I don't think with Ben Roethlisberger there will be a difference with this game. I think that the Browns will be able to win this game 31-20. The last game in the AFC for the wildcard weekend is the Baltimore Ravens at the Tennessee Titans. The Titans have one of the best running backs in the league in Derrick Henry and an opportunistic passing game. The Titans don't have the best defense, but their defense will not lose them any games. As for the Ravens, they have a great run game, a great defense, but a below average passing game. This is where I disagree with a lot of people. I do not think that Lamar Jackson is a good quarterback at the NFL level. I do believe that Lamar Jackson is a great athlete and is very fast and is a great runner. But when you're assessing Lamar Jackson's passing ability, I think that he's a below average NFL passer. The primary job of a quarterback. I feel that this plays a role in Ravens games. If they are put in a position where you know that Lamar Jackson has to throw the ball, he is unable to win the game with just his arm. One other thing that I don't understand how no one else has noticed about Lamar Jackson is if you look closely, he can tip off if the play call is a pass or a run. Now, when I watched him this year, he did a little better than last year, but he will still occasionally do this, where when the play call is a pass, he will reach down to his towel and wipe his hands off. Now, I have seen no one else talk about this problem, or if NFL players have caught on to this, but if they realize what he's doing, it could be a big problem for the Baltimore Ravens. This is a rematch of last year's divisional game against the Ravens and Titans. The biggest difference being the Titans are the higher seed. And I feel like this will be a blowout for the Titans in this game. I think that the score will be 28-10 Titans. Now on to the AFC wildcard games. The first game is the Chicago Bears at the New Orleans Saints. The Chicago Bears are a team with a great defense and had an offense that struggled at times during the season. Down the stretch, the Chicago Bears offense was able to pick it up and help them win a couple of games at the end of the season. And due to how Week 17 panned out, they were able to sneak in as the last wildcard team. I am a big fan of Mitch Trubisky and feel that he fits the Bears offense better than Nick Foles does. But he's up against a tough test in the New Orleans Saints defense. The Saints have been known for the past couple years as a top contender that has never really been able to make it over the hump and give Drew Brees his second Super Bowl ring. In the last couple of weeks of the NFL season, the Saints struggled offensively as Drew Brees came back from broken ribs and a punctured lung. But as the playoffs coming to a start, I don't think this will be a problem for the Saints. But I feel like the Bears will be able to make this a closer game than people are thinking it will be. I think the Saints will be able to win this game 23-20, as the Bears kicker will not be able to make a game-tying field goal at the end of the game. The next game is the Los Angeles Rams at the Seattle Seahawks. The Rams are a team that were able to sneak in the last game when they beat the Arizona Cardinals without their quarterback Jared Goff. They have a great defense led by Aaron Donald, who is probably the best defensive player I have ever seen in my life. With an offense that has had not the best season, with a struggling Jared Goff, who has played inconsistent this year, and in some games has made questionable reads that have lost them games. The success of this team will rely on what Jared Goff they get. Now, I believe if Jared Goff's injury is still bothering him by this game, he will try to play through it. That'll be another big headline going into this game against their divisional rivals, the Seattle Seahawks. The Seahawks have probably the best wide receiver core in the NFL right now. Everyone loves watching DK Metcalf, and they forget that DK Metcalf is Russell Wilson's second favorite target, as Tyler Lockett being his number one. Metcalf being the more big play receiver, well, Tyler Lockett is kind of their possession receiver, as they try to get him with short passes with space to run. They do not have a defense as good as the Legion of Boom of old, but the Seahawks still have a pretty solid defense. Seattle has also not had the best rushing game, as injuries have hurt them in this department. I also feel like Russell Westbrook is a great quarterback. I know I'm not like some sort of prophet thinking Russell Wilson is a good quarterback, but I feel like when Wilson was younger, media would give him more of the credit than he deserved. But as he's aged, I don't think they're giving him enough credit for what he's doing now. He has kept the Seahawks relevant with almost no run game at all. I just don't think that Jared Goff will be healthy enough to beat Seattle. I think that Seattle will win this game 35-24. The last game in the wildcard round is the Tampa Bay Buccaneers against the Washington Too Lazy to Pick a Team name. Now, this is a hard game for me to pick, because I feel like Tampa Bay is a paper dragon. People look at the names of the players on the Buccaneers, and they look like they're a great team. But the Tampa Bay Buccaneers do not have an identity. They have a below-average defense that can give up big plays at any moment. At any point, the passing game or the running game can just disappear, and I feel like the Tampa Bay Buccaneers were lucky to make the playoffs this year. But that being said, I feel like Washington also is very lucky to make the playoffs. They have a losing record and were able to win the worst division in the NFL. They are led by Alex Smith at quarterback, who took over 2 years to come back from a torn ACL injury. That, mind you, was very gruesome. But I feel like at this point, Alex Smith is still trying to get back into the swing of things, as he is an aging quarterback. Washington does have a future franchise defensive end in Chase Young, but I do not think in his rookie year he is necessarily there yet. He is already an amazing player, but he can become so much better in just a couple of years. So I think the Bucs will just squeak by in this game, 21-20. These are my picks for NFL's wildcard weekend. Who do you think will win the Super Bowl this year? I will come back next week and see how I did and take my picks for next week's playoff games.